Found another flat earther who has a very interesting perspective on perspective. And with interesting I mean fascinating. And with fascinating I mean amusing, or in other words, too funny for words. Something along the lines of, what the actual fuck have you been smoking, lad? Now, this one just loves to do videos of around a minute or two, which is all fine and dandy, except for the fact they could be even shorter, what with his godlike skills of sheer repetition he's able to physically cram into a short amount of time. So once again, I'm using multiple videos to get the required amount of runtime for his claims, along with having to truncate all the dead air, or where he's just doing an unrelated talky bit. Here's p-brane.
Hey everybody, p-brane here. I set up two 4-foot long pipes, and I was going to show that divergent lines can actually converge.
This is gonna be good.
So anyway, I'm bringing the camera, swinging the camera around, and as I look down those diverging lines or pipes, look what happens. Wow, they converge.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for the punchline. So, you're telling me you're not taking the piss? Cause it really looked like you were taking the piss. I mean, look what happens. Wow, they diverge. These are in fact the actual vanishing points of your fancy pipes. You and your yellow line are clearly crossing the line here. Legend has it, two different objects with different vanishing points will simply never meet.
Put that in was for all those that would claim that anti-crepuscular rays actually debunk the flat Earth.
Well, who told you that? Crepuscular rays and anti-crepuscular rays have nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. It has everything to do with the fact that the Sun cannot be a small and local body, by proving these rays are parallel. Well, technically this cannot work on a flat plane, because the Sun has to be at or below the horizon for this to work. So there's that.
Because divergent rays couldn't converge on the opposite horizon. Well, they can.
Except they can't, as evident by your yellow line being a complete misunderstanding of how this shit works.
And actually, most of the rays that we see coming overhead, even from a small local sun, would still appear basically parallel. I mean, it's small, but it's not that small. So the lines over our little dome of vision, you might say, right overhead would appear parallel.
They really will not, as indicated by the name, they would diverge. Do you even understand what divergent means? Because from the looks of it, you have absolutely no clue.
But the divergent rays that leave a common center of a ball sun, or whatever shape the sun actually is.
Wait. Am I to understand you also think the sun isn't a sphere?
But so those rays would come out diverging. What I'm showing here is that divergent rays will converge.
Well, as I mentioned, he likes to repeat himself. Therefore.
So that's pretty cool that if these were long enough, these pipes, they would converge.
Or not.
A question I've gotten over the years is from ball earthers and people who don't believe in flat Earth.
Nope, not gonna let that slide. It's not a form of belief, it's based on where the evidence leads. But I agree, the flat Earth movement is entirely faith-based. There's not a shred of evidence in your cult. In fact, it's quite similar to a religion, as I've gone over in my comparison to religion video.
Well, if the sun is traveling over the Earth parallel to the ground, we should see it really slow on the horizon and then whiz overhead.
Like this train right next to us?
Okay, it should whiz overhead and then go slow again, appear slow again on the horizon, like this jet fighter. Here we go.
This guy's taking the piss, right? Well, aside from that footage being awesome, that's a nice strawman you're building. Would be a shame if it was set on fire by the bloody jet engine. No one in their right mind would have asked you this question, as it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Okay, so they think that that's what we should see.
Who are they? Who is this dickfoot claiming your local and small sun is whizzing past within a few meters of us? How's that strawman coming along?
And so what I want to explain here is that we shouldn't see that. And this is why we shouldn't see it. And it has to do with perspective convergence lines. See, the perspective causes the sun to appear on the ground, on the horizon, and then as it comes towards you, it rises or it climbs in the sky, right? And now it goes back down. So as you notice, it's keeping its perpendicular orientation to you as the observer. Right? So it's not going away on your eye line or approaching you on your eye line. And that makes all the difference.
So, let me get this straight here. Because it's high up in the sky. What do you lot think it is again? Something like 3,000 miles or something? That is the reason it won't speed up as in your train or jet example? Has it maybe occurred to you that the train and the jet are not exactly far away as indicated by their, rather close proximity? They are right bloody next to you. And even at your alleged 3,000 miles, it would be far enough away to be unable to notice it speeding up as it goes overhead. Why do I have to explain this shit?
I mean, this is the same reason why the sun doesn't shrink to a dot.
Oh, is it now? So it has nothing to do with the distance we rotate away on the surface of the Earth being relatively microscopic to the actual distance to the sun, making any visual change in angular size impossible to notice, aside from refraction near the horizon, which is a whole nother story.
I'll cover that probably in the next video.
Oh, goody.
But this video I just wanted to focus on the speed. So here it comes. It's broke the horizon and it's coming overhead and it climbs in the sky. And that climbing is what offsets the speed that it would want to zip overhead, but since it's climbing, that kind of slows it down and it's like an offset, and it maintains its speed. Perfectly legitimate in our flat Earth and makes perfect sense.
Except that it doesn't, as I've explained. Hey, here's an easy test even you can perform. Look for someone in the distance behind the fence and try to get his attention. Once you've made contact, flip him off. Now observe as he's running around the fence to get to you, keep following him with your finger. Notice how he has to physically travel much further as your finger. Let me know how this works out for you.
As you put this pipe up to your eye like this is up to the camera, you can see that both ends are the same size, but they don't appear the same size. The near end is way bigger than the far end, and it's only 4 feet away, right? And as I move closer to the near end, it gets even bigger and bigger. So it's all a matter of perspective, your point of view.
Huh, that is correct.
Also notice that there's light at both ends of the pipe, but the center is black. That's because light doesn't travel forever.
So tell me, what happens to that shadow inside your pipe if you point it directly at the sun? I guess what you meant to say is, light doesn't bounce forever, because objects reflecting light will absorb some of it, depending on its reflectiveness, making it dimmer with each bounce.
That's also why it gets dark on a flat Earth.
Just love how you snuck this little flat Earth tidbit in there. So, you're implying that light from the sun will somehow stop after a while. Explain how we are able to see stars and other planets. Or since you don't believe they're demonstrable distance from us, explain how the moon gets lit up if the sun's light rays have a maximum distance. I mean, it looks to me the reason we have night and day is because our own damn planet gets in the way of the light, meaning the night side is our shadow side. Oh, and before you start getting all excited, the moon phases are not the Earth's shadow, that's the eclipse. I hope you at the very least do realize that. Okay, and let's get back to why the sun doesn't shrink to a dot. Okay, this is called your z-axis. This is a line out from your eyes in any direction. And so if the sun were on our eye line, it would go away from you and it would shrink, 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 like this train going down the tracks too. Shrink, shrink, shrink. Okay? But it's not on our eye line. The sun on a flat Earth moves parallel to the ground. So therefore, it moves perpendicular to your eye line. Alright, hold it right there. Ironically, you've drawn yourself into a corner here, without even realizing it. Your sun is moving along one of those perspective lines, but as if by magic, it will ignore all other lines above it and below it. Strange how your sun somehow gains special rules for not being on your eye line, or horizon. So, have you ever seen a plane at around 11 kilometers cruising altitude? They are also not on your eye line, but still get smaller the further away they are. Right, so as it's going over, it's not going to shrink. It's like when I move the pipe out here and I lay it down on the grass, you can see that would be the path of the sun. So now both ends of the pipe are the same size visually. So even though it's moved 4 feet, it's not moving away on your eye line, therefore it's not going to shrink drastically. I just have to mention this. Another pet peeve of mine has been on display throughout this entire bloody video. Don't start your next animation when you're not done yet talking about your previous animation. Here, let me get back to your previous image. Making me do work and shit. Anyway, that would only work if your sun is directly overhead. What? Are you gonna run along with your sun so it will always be the same distance from you? Also, did you notice I'm calling it your sun? Because my sun, in reality, doesn't play by your strange fantasy rules. And then, when you couple in perspective convergence, the sun comes over and it forms kind of a pyramid shape as it goes overhead. So it maintains this perpendicular angle to the observer. Perpendicular. You know, something tells me you don't quite understand that word. I can't really put my finger on it. Here's your perpendicular lines aligned to your sun's path. That's an angle of 56 degrees, 90 degrees and 124 degrees. But the fact remains, they are nowhere near perpendicular to your observer. Look at these telephone poles. Okay. These are the perspective lines. So telephone poles will do this. They'll go smaller, 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 smaller as they go away from me, right? So if I take this telephone pole right here and I made a copy of it, and it's this little thing right here, and I put that way up overhead, it's going to shrink overhead. It's going to look small because it's on my eye line, right? It's going up. Watch this. So
It's way up overhead. You see how small it got? Now when it goes away from you, it follows the steep convergent line, keeping it perpendicular to your eye line, and it doesn't change much.
Just stop it already. It still has to follow the same rules of perspective. You can even see those lines converging into one point. At some point one has to wonder if you even understand what you're peddling or even drawing.
Okay, that's basically what the sun will do. You know, if it were on our eye line, again, it would shrink, 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 but it's not on our eye line, right?
No, not right. And I'm done explaining this to you, boy. Contrary to your video making, I don't like to constantly repeat myself.
And this is the same reason the sun doesn't speed up as it goes overhead. Many anti-flat earthers would come and say, well,
yeah, we've done this already. Chipmunk, skip.
This debunks the flat earth because we don't see the sun speed up as it goes overhead. And what they're talking about is like a train coming to the station. They'll say, see, the sun should be very slow on the horizon and whiz overhead. And, well, if it were on our eye line, yeah, it would. But the sun's not on our eye line. It's traveling parallel to the ground and it's perpendicular to us. So it will climb in the sky like this, right? And so it's essentially going up higher and higher away from us. So, and that climbing up is why it doesn't whiz over your head. The sun goes over steadily, at a steady speed. That's how it works.
No, that's not how it works. And did you just say the sun travels parallel to the ground? Don't you even realize that you're basically claiming it is lowering and rising in altitude?
That's why it doesn't change much at all. It does shrink a little on the vertical axis, as any filtered time-lapse footage will show you.
Yeah, well, that's refraction at work now, isn't it?
Ball earthers putting out these videos where they show like this, where you see buildings beyond the horizon or boats beyond the horizon, and the lower portions of these objects have their bottoms blocked. And they claim that that's exclusive to a ball earth and curvature, things going over the curvature.
Which is exactly what is required for this beyond the horizon phenomena. Anything which has their bottom part blocked from view has to be physically lower than your horizon.
Well, what I want to show is that this is also consistent with flat earth and a flat plane due to perspective convergence.
Well, let me tell you right now, on a flat plane they would merely decrease in angular size to the point where we can no longer resolve them. They would not gradually disappear bottom up when going over the horizon. But go on.
Okay, so what I like to use is this simple brick wall right here. And anybody can do this. Actually, there's a flat earther a while back who put out a video talking about the horizon. And he said that, you know, he found a physicist, you know, I guess to give some credibility to the argument, you know, and supposedly if this physicist said that, yes, a horizon will form on a flat plane.
Regardless, I want to meet the person who told you there is no horizon on a flat plane. You know, just to slap him upside the head for being a dum-dum. Is this another one of your straw men? Because on a flat planet there will obviously be a horizon. Although it behaves quite a bit different from a horizon on a huge fucking sphere, or as I like to call it, reality.
But what I want to show is, it's not that complicated. You don't need a physicist. You don't need someone to verify.
Well, technically you don't need someone, but you do need to verify.
Just find this brick wall, or any wall with horizontal parallel lines. Okay, but the brick wall, anybody can find one near their house and go and do this experiment. So squat down and then raise your eyes up to each mortar line, right? And as you can see from this picture, they're all going to converge at a point in the distance, right? So that point in the distance is your horizon. But anyway, so raise your eyes up and you'll see that wherever your eyes are is always going to be a horizontal level line, or it's your horizon line, right?
Right, on a flat plane. However, there is this little thing called reality, where on a globe the horizon will eventually start to get lower and lower, something you can easily test using a theodolite, and is physically impossible on a flat plane.
So I put the blue line here as I raise up to keep showing you that the higher you get, your horizon stays with you, and all the other lines converge to it, to your horizon line. Okay, so then how does a horizon form on a flat plane, and how would it actually block objects beyond the horizon?
Well, the short answer is a flat plane horizon cannot block objects behind its horizon, because as I mentioned, for objects to be blocked by your horizon, they have to be physically lower than you are. Also, this has been pissing me off for a while now, seeing this footage of yours. What is it with your lot and operating cameras? Put it on a damn tripod, level your camera and move it up step by step so you have bloody consistency. I mean really, just casually looking at your footage, it's so damn obvious you're accidentally tilting the camera forward, causing the horizon to be all over the place. Here's a hint, it should be horizontally dead center in your frame.
Okay, well, being that you can see that everything goes to your eye level, and this wall could be 500 miles high, 1,000 miles high, it doesn't matter. If the plane is big enough to not get to the edge of the plane, if it's a huge plane, the horizon will rise to your eye level. That's just how it works. This is fact of how our vision works, right? Our one-point perspective.
Exactly. So please explain to me how come by increasing your elevation, the horizon will eventually start to drop. Your eye level horizon is consistent with a flat plane. However, it conflicts with what we observe in reality with the physical or rather visible horizon. So I'd like to mention as of this point I've met the runtime requirement. However, he likes to ramble on and repeat himself quite a bit. So there's quite an offset.
So what would happen is you could have a building just behind the horizon.
Nah, say it ain't so. Do you? Wait. So you think... I can't believe that he's for real here. You're claiming a physical ramp forms on a flat plane to account for objects over the horizon being obstructed due to some kind of special perspective? Also, how did you conclude the horizon on your flat plane is 3 miles out, when in fact it should be at infinity, at eye level, at any height? Something, as I've already mentioned, conflicts with the reality of the horizon dropping down when you increase your altitude.
Just behind it, right? And only the bottom few inches of the building is cut off. You can't see any ground. We've already determined that. Past the horizon, you can't see any more ground. So take that same building now and move it a mile beyond the horizon. Now the building has gotten smaller relative to the horizon.
So yeah, alright, he seems to be serious about this. So let's ask a serious question. I could have never imagined having to ask a question as silly as this. But hey, I might have forgotten about the kind of special people I'm dealing with here. So, you've got your perspective ramp for your flat plane's lack of obstruction of objects beyond the horizon. You want to tell me how you even want to attempt to account for the buildings beyond your arbitrary horizon behaving quite differently from the laws of perspective by somehow having to be physically lower compared to the top of your ramp towards the horizon. Something which is easily explained on a globe, but hey, apparently we have a ramp now.
See what I mean? So now a much bigger portion of it is blocked from the bottom up. And now move that building another mile beyond the horizon. And it keeps getting smaller relative to this blocking horizon. And I know a lot of ball earthers think that you should be able to see forever on a flat plane. Well, besides perspective, there's also miraging that takes place on the surface of the water. There's atmosphere, there's water droplets. You can't see anyway. When they zoom in on boats and stuff that are far out to sea, they disintegrate because of so much atmosphere.
No, the biggest problem for you lot caused by the flat plane's horizon is the fact that objects cannot sink behind the horizon, so to speak. Refraction and mirages cannot account alone for entire buildings, boats or even bloody mountains disappearing behind the horizon, unless they are indeed physically lower than your horizon, which is only possible on a globe. Well, unless you bring your special ramp of relative perspective to the beach, I guess. Heck, I even gave it a spiffy name now. However, as I've said before, damn it, you've got me repeating shit as well now. Objects on the horizon will merely decrease in angular size to the point where you can no longer resolve them. You know, repetition is not my thing, but hey, this is what the thing is here, and I will damn well say the thing. Damn it.
Right.
Wait, and not right. No one in their right mind would have said you can see infinitely far on a flat plane. You're a goddamn straw man. I guess the maximum distance you could see on a flat plane would be at the point where you can no longer resolve anything, which could technically be the visual horizon, apart from the fact that the real horizon is still at infinity, but hey, now we're splitting hairs.
And then there's the problem of maybe how far light can actually illuminate your horizon. But barring any of that, as long as all conditions are right, the horizon will rise to your eye level. And when it does, you can't see any more ground past that point where the ground has converged with your eye level, because the sky and the ground have converged. Okay, so just reiterating.
No, allow me to reiterate that shit back into reality for you. You basically said that on a flat plane the horizon would always be at eye level, which is correct. However, that's not what we see in reality, where the dropping of the horizon and the ever more visible curve the higher you go proves the globe. Furthermore, where you use converge, that is simply our inability to resolve objects that are too far away. And where you have to make up this imaginary ramp at an arbitrary distance of 3 miles to somehow try to account for objects beyond the horizon being obscured by it, when in fact we have a perfectly fine explanation on a globe, without having to ignore demonstrable facts about perspective. And I'm not even going to address that ludicrous maximum light distance claim again, because in reality, where I live, light has no such properties. In other words, prove it or lose it. So, the rest of this video is basically him rehashing the entire bloody video. It's like constant repetition somehow. It really starts to look like indoctrination, similar to religion or other cult-like behavior. Although, at the very end, he does have another claim. Let's have a look.
This would be, as you look out towards the horizon, that's your z-axis, that's your longitudinal axis, that's from your eye out, right, in any direction. So if they're claiming curvature on that axis, what about the horizon or the horizontal axis, your x-axis? Well, we don't see any curvature on that. So it's ludicrous to say that you see curvature on the z-axis, but not on the x or the horizontal axis. That's just another point. So that confirms that what we're seeing is a perspective horizon. It's not a curvature horizon. Okay?
P-brane, you know full well that at sea level you will not see any significant curve on the horizontal x-axis, because the horizon at sea level is close to your eye level. Not to mention your field of view is way too narrow. In fact, if you rise in altitude, your field of view in relation to the horizon will actually increase, so you'll be able to see more of the curve. However, and we've been over this, once you've gained enough altitude, the horizon will start to drop away, while showing you an ever-increasing curve, which indicates you're able to see more of the sphere within your field of view. And if you keep going, you will eventually see the entire sphere. And there really is no such thing as a curvature horizon. It's all basic perspective. However, it's not the complete misunderstanding of perspective you've cooked up with your perspective ramp. Well, that's it. We've made it to the end. And that's a 55 silly points in total. Now, mind you, because of the blah 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 by p-brane here, I have to throw in a 1.2 multiplier, giving us 66 exactly. Oh no, that's an evil number, right? P-brane, you are sentenced to be a jester in the Order of the Sillies. Enjoy your stay. Also, however, yeah, I noticed I kept using that word. However, I'm not even sorry. Good God, man. So, thanks for the like, sub, bell, view, comment, you know, all that YouTube stuff. I'm out of here. You know, this gave me a whole new perspective on perspective. Or rather, what's it called? FLERFspective? I don't even care.